Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one, I'm going to try and make two parts to it, but I'll still try to keep it shorter than normal. The first part is going to be Labyrinth, which is the water labyrinth, and you can use pretty much any element with these once you get strong enough, but Thunder's got the advantage, and you may want to avoid fire if you want to make it as easy as possible. But Labyrinth Events, generally you want to have a team that can solo the ultimate catastrophes, just to have a good indicator if you're ready to clear all of ultimate on the Labyrinth, because enemies can start getting a lot of HP around that level of HP. So that said, that's a good indicator to see if you're ready to clear all of ultimate, because according to this list, as it says right here, clearing all of standard gets you about 10 to 12% of the list. Clearing all of ultimate, however, will get you generally around 95% or more of the list. Usually you'll get at least 100%. It's very generous on how much you'll sip and get. So that said, best to clear ultimate one time as opposed to clearing standard multiple times, if that helps. The more you get through ultimate, the more item percentage you'll get, essentially. But regardless of difficulty, 10 AP per lap, or floor as I like to call them. So you'll be spending quite a lot just to even go through standard once, which is 100 floors. Ultimate, however, is 200 floors. So now, when it comes to enemies, carbuncles can show up anytime the floor ends in 5 or 0. So 5th floor, 10th floor, 15th floor, and so on. Now, these will replace the mid-boss or the boss of wherever they show up. So that makes it very easy to actually get some materials and whatnot too. In fact, their RP and EXP is actually the best if you're doing standard, because of the fact that no other enemy will give that much. But they have 2000 HP, and it doesn't even matter if it's standard or ultimate. They will have the same stats. They're meant to be easy kills, period, point blank. Also, they're dark element for some reason, I don't know why. But as for enemies, I won't go over full details on how much they, like what they do or how many times they hit you or whatever. I'm just going over how much HP they have. So your normal enemies, which is 1 star for standard, 1000 HP. Then they also get another 500 times the floor that you're on, or the lap that you're on. Because whatever floor or lap you're on is the level they'll have. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're on 100 floor, then that's what's going to be the multiplier for the bonus HP that enemies get. Now, mid bosses, they are 5000 HP base and 2500 HP per floor. So as you can see, it's already racking up much faster. It's like 5 times more HP compared to the normal enemies. And then there is the bosses. They have 15,000 HP, and then another 7,500 times the floor you're on. So that's something to remember. If you're curious on what they do, pause the video. You can see it right here. The things that say 1T, 2T, 3T, 4T, that's how many orbs they'll have. You see the rank points and the experience over off onto the side, but the normal and raging moves is what you really need to pay attention to. So just pause it and read that. You'll have a general idea of what they do if you know enough about your buffs and debuffs. And confusion is pretty dangerous if it lands, so be careful with that one, because it can sometimes just interrupt your turn and just make a character damage themselves. Now, on Ultimate, as you can see, stats have spiked. Like, really spiked. Now, the normal enemies are 3 star, and they will have 25,000 HP. with 10,000 times the floor they're on. At a certain point, you will never be able to kill them in one. You'll never be able to kill all three in one single hit, or two if it shows up in a floor with two. I don't know if they do that. So that means you will need to have Medea use her triple cast ability or something like that in order to get them all in one go. So that said, they do indeed get strong enough to actually hit millions of HP. Even the weakest ones hit millions of HP on Ultimate. That's something to remember. The mid bosses, 50,000 HP, 35,000 times the level. So significantly more HP, and on top of that, you can still kill these in one turn. Like, I've done it. In fact, I think I've killed them without even hitting the attack button, so that counts as 0 turns. So that's still possible. But they are 4-star enemies now, the mid-bosses. The bosses are 5-star enemies, and they have 100,000 HP with 75,000 times the level. These are the ones you may not kill in one turn unless you are super strong with your grid. And on top of that, in my case, I still have to get lucky with bus and debus. Otherwise, I will not be able to kill them in one turn, but I can still kill them like 2 or 3. So yeah, they actually get that much HP. It's like around 20 million on the 200th floor, I do believe. Now, the one enemy I didn't say anything about is Skill Coon, or that's it for this floor, however they call him. Now, you're not meant to kill him. He shows up at the end of each labyrinth. Like, if you cleared standard, he'll show up every floor from the 101st floor onward. If you clear ultimate 201st floor, he'll show up, and if you somehow kill him, because you can do that, he'll show up again on the next floor. You don't get anything for him, basically. The thing you want to do when you come to this floor is just take advantage of the massive item boost he'll step and give you, and then die to him. That's it. If you are trying to kill him, make sure you can revive every single turn. There's only 2 Kamihime I can do that, I think, right now, and that's a Rebus and Justicia. But later on, they're going to nerf how much burst gauge you get if they don't do it already. So that said, you won't be able to get 100 burst gauge every single turn you get hit, because this guy does so much damage, he'll instantly fill up your burst gauge. So that said, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. As long as you can make them burst on the first turn, or before they even get hit, then you can pull off that quote-unquote cheese tactic to kill Skill Measurement Coon. So if you want to, you can try that, but you don't have to. Now, the rewards. Generally speaking, don't worry about the lance or the staff. They have a range in their effects, and those are fodder weapons to a T. They are not that good. The only reason you want them is to skill level them to 5 and feed them to other weapons so you get optimal skill EXP for those. Because SSR, when it's at skill level 5, is generally the best amount of skill experience you'll get for how much you fed into it, which is, I do believe, 20 R weapons worth. So that said, get them, fill them up with like 20 R weapons worth of experience so they get to like skill level 5, then feed those SSR into other SSR weapons you want to keep. Speaking of which, you may want to keep the sword, because I memorized off of this list. The sword is Ascension, which is medium, I do believe, and Strength, which is small, and it can final break. You might want to keep that one, because it depends on how much you value Ascension, and water does indeed have a lot of healers, so that's something to remember. The real meat of this event, you're probably trying to get the magic jewels, the Dragonic Eye shards, the gacha tickets, of course, because one of them is a 10 draw, which you can only get from this event. You're probably going to want those books. I call them gold and silver books, but some people go by the background ahead, so they call the gold ones a rainbow book, and they call the silver ones a gold book. All I know is you're going to need these for break limiting your Kamihime, and probably the S-Class souls as well. The Orichalcon, which is how they call it on our side, this is the only event I know of where you can get that So that said, definitely make it a point to try and get these, because the only other way to get them is through trades, through item shop, or through guild order. Now, of course, if you're able to clear ultimate catastrophe raids on your own, you're probably able to clear guild order, so that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing I have to point out too, the fangs. These are tedious to grind. These are very, very tedious to grind. So that said, you'll want to get these fangs. Eventually, you should be able to access an SP level quest, or element quest as they call them, where you'll get a guaranteed fang drop every single time. But it costs like, I think 50 AP to do? 40 or 50, somewhere around that mark. It's ultimate plus. It'll guarantee a fang drop every single run, but it will consume a lot of AP. This will get you 20. So generally, if you clear all of ultimate in one go, you're spending about, I think, 2,000 AP, which essentially means you're getting, I think, one of these for every 10 AP, I think, or maybe one for every 100, somewhere around that mark. But these are still very tedious to get. I don't remember the math behind it, but again, compared to getting them from Ultimate or below is very tedious. Ultimate Plus is where you want to grind your fangs, believe me. But this definitely helps. Now, last but not least, I usually don't say too much about these grails, but I feel the need to, because we're about to get our hands on 50, like these Dragonic Eye Weapons that cost 50 eyes. It's a steep price, sure, but they are some of the strongest weapons in the game, because they massively, massively spike the pride or vigor on your grid, depending on the weapon. They need so much skill experience. These grails will come in handy for that, especially if you optimize the grails. I think it takes skill level 5. It's either 4 or 5. I did 5 to be safe. And the SR grails will feed the most for how much you put into it. So that said, the grails are going to come in handy. Even if they don't come in handy for that, they're going to come in handy for the Guardian weapons, which also need a lot of experience points, just nowhere near as much as the 50 eye weapons. And then, speaking of experience points, this is one of the few events where you can get accessory spears. But yeah, the sword, it is medium ascension with small assault, small defender. That's what strength is. And it gives 2,534 attack, which is quite a lot, so it's worth considering using. But the other two, a range, not worth. Besides, if you want water lances, just grind out Ophiel. She'll give you materials for that, or even outright drop them. But another reason why you may want to keep this is depending on what the fuse does. I don't know what the fuse does, so once it's hard to look up the skill effects because the list is so long. But the fuse could be a decent effect. I don't know for sure. But sometimes putting these on your souls is actually better than the soul weapon, depending on what soul uses it. So, that's something to remember. But now, we're going into guild competition, because this is coming up pretty soon. It hasn't been announced, but it should be coming up pretty soon, and I'm just going to do the video already. So, we are on 9th skill cone. 11 turns, and we have to do as much damage as we possibly can for the whole fight. We don't get maximum damage in one turn until like 13th, which is what JP side has recently got. Now, that said, 9th is a little weird, because first off, it's got more defense than normal. Normal defense for enemies is generally 10. This has got 16, so it's almost taking half damage from everything. Now, that also goes a little bit further when you look at special effects it has right here in the remarks, where the damage it deals to the rear guard is reduced, but the avant guard has a higher chance of getting hit. what that means is the back two Kamihime, like not sub slot, like literal out of your 5, the 4th and 5th slots, they will take less damage. Well, actually, no. It says they'll take less damage. It says to enemy rear guard, so they will take less damage. The ones that are in the front, which is your soul and the first two Kamihime, so slots 1 through 3, they will have a higher chance of getting hit. This is further complicated by what the enemy does. First turn, it will do 3 random hits. Second turn, it will do 3 random hits, but they're very high damage. Third turn, it will do 5 random hits, but the damage is in between the first 2. So, say it does like, generally, a way to put it is like, say it will do like 1,000 damage per hit for the first one, then maybe 3,000 per hit for the second one, and then maybe 2,000 per hit for the third. That's a way to do it. But the third one also buffs its attack, and it's stackable. I don't know if you can remove this or not. There's no indication about that. So, that said, be very wary about your front 3. They're going to get hit a lot, especially since these are random hits. And this is all it does the entire fight. After it does the first one, it does a second move. After it does a second, it does a third. After it does a third, it goes back to the first, because every 3 turns after the first time it's used a move, it'll go to it again. So it's like a cycle. It'll always do these. There is no like raging nuke or normal nuke. It's all triggers. So you could see your front 3 die pretty quickly. That's something to remember. Now, your main reason for doing this, right here, they said, get the 15,000 medals you need in order to exchange for the Phantom Beast Limit Breakthrough set. What that is the Eidolon Break Limit set that we have, where you get that purple looking thing in there. It's called an Imperial Chaldea. That is the only reason you should be doing these guild competitions for, because do not trade them for gacha tickets. There are so many other ways to get gacha tickets to pull for. Don't trade them for jewels. Don't trade them for anything else but those break limit things. I cannot stress that enough, especially considering the fact that we have 100% Eidolons. They're getting final break limit eventually. We have 140% Eidolons. They're currently the best in slot Eidolons for main slot. But that will change a little bit later, and I'll get to that. We have Divine Beasts. They are exceptionally strong, even though you can only summon them once per fight. And on the way, we'll start getting SSR versions of the Catastrophes. Those are the strongest Eidolons in the game, bar none, for main slot. Because of the fact that they will give assault based on how many limit breaks they have. But regardless of the limit breaks they have, they won't even add that assault until after they add 50% more skill effects to that element. Meaning, if you had, say, 200% assault, it acts like 300% before it even adds the bonus assault that it gives. And it is 20% per limit break. So it'll start off giving 20% assault, but then it gives 40% at the first star, all the way up to 100% assault. So let's factor this in. If you have 200% assault, you have one of those max limit break, and you find a friend one that's max limit break, then your assault has doubled before it adds another 200. Yeah, that's absurd, and it does it to all the skills. Defender, Exceed, all of it. It just won't add extra after that. So you can have like 100 in everything, and it'll double it all to 200, but it'll still increase assault even further on top of it. See what I'm getting at? Those are definitely the strongest Eidolons in the game for main slot when they come out. All the more reason to get these Imperial Chaldeas, or the break limit set, because you won't have to pull extra copies of these, and all the Eidolons I just mentioned are very hard to pull. So, again, that's the reason why you do this. Same thing goes for Tower with its version, because it's like 10,000 medals for the weapon version of it, which is those bricks we call them. They're purple, but they do look like a brick. That's the only reason you do the Tower events and the guild competition events. You are trying to get those. They are very hard to get your hands on if you don't do these events, because of the simple fact that the rankings is actually pretty generous for getting those, and even then you can save up medals in order to get them again later on. But if you decide to do things the hard way, you have to pull multiple copies of something, or you'll have to kick up 20 Dragonic Eyes, or pay money for it if you're a free player, which you probably ain't going to be able to do. So that's why you do these. You even get guild medals just for sitting and completing some stuff, just for attempting it, basically. So that said, save up your guild medals for nothing but the highest trades possible, the 15,000 trades. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon, because I probably won't record the Labyrinth, because I'm just completely demolishing it. But I will record guild competition, because I always record guild competition if I can. And they give you a long time for it too, so I generally can just pump out a video of those every single time, unless something major really happens, and I don't know with this game sometimes, because we've recently had some login issues and whatnot. I'm not affected by it, but it did slow me down a little bit while I play. And also, one last thing I need to point out about guild competition: if you are not using elemental advantage, you will have a huge disadvantage, because of the fact that, first off, it's resistant to any damage except for the weak element. So if you say use light against a light cone, or use thunder against a wind cone, regardless of what damage you cause, it's going to be reduced to 10% of what it would normally be. And on top of that, you'll never land any debuffs, because it will be completely immune to any debuffs from those elements. So that said, advantage element only, if you want to try to get the most out of it. And practice with this mechanic, because it will become permanent content later on. Remember I mentioned 100% add-ons will eventually get Final Break? Well, the content in order to set up and get the materials for that has this mechanic. It is called Guardian Plus raids. They are very, very difficult. They will be some of the most difficult fights in the game. Only one raid is going to be stronger than those, if I remember correctly, and that would be Atlas. So that said, get used to this mechanic. That's all the more reason why you need to build up all your elements, because literally that one mechanic, and it is annoying to deal with the harder content. Not just that, but we should be getting at the end of the month heroic difficulty for events, and they have this mechanic as well. So that's something to remember. You don't have to do heroic, but if you're going to attempt it, that's something to keep in mind. But heroic difficulty is definitely some of the hardest content in the game. About as hard as Atlas. Mainly because you got a solo for it. But anyways, that's it for this. Again, I will have a guild competition video up eventually. I can't really guarantee I'll sit and record all elements, because sometimes I don't. But I will at least record my light team, because I always do that. I'm a light main and I like showing off that team. Simple as that. But anyways, that's it for now, and I will try to have videos of other stuff up too, so keep an eye out for those. I've already done a video of this one random game I just found, and yeah, it is a 18+ game, but I don't show that content on here, so it's something worth checking out, because of the fact that it's an interesting little game. It is actually pretty challenging, even though it was short, but it's just something I wanted to do. Like, I'm trying to branch out to other stuff as well, see what sticks, because my most viewed video isn't even Kamihime Project. You can double check that on my video list if you want, because you can arrange it by most popular. But anyways, that's all for this. More to come soon, and take care.